Shira, Mamani Paya, the Foa, and Yanum. And Fanya Missoya, Jumana, Yami Besrayan, O'Brien, Boya, and Moyamurai, Abeya, Effie, and Ara, Amabaya, Effie, and Ara,
101.9 FM, Pleasure and Business Radio.
Good morning, good people of Ghana. You're welcome to the Focus on Z101.9 FM, your lifestyle, leisure, and business radio. So I trust you've had a very good week. I'm trusting everything went well, especially with all the news happening in our country. We have seen over the past few weeks that our dollar has been dropping. Whether it's been sharply declining or it's been dropping at an alarming rate, we do not know. But what we can see, or what we have seen on our news, has been that the dollar has been dropping in a rather pleasing or disturbing manner, depending on where you stand. Today on the Focus, we are going to be discussing the performance of the economy. We're going to be looking at whether the drop of the dollar is something that is sustainable. And it's interesting to note that while the dollar is dropping, some people are excited to have the news, others are also rather disturbed. In fact, you would see that with some investments or some sales which were previously made in dollars, today you see it being reverted to cedis. Is it a good thing? Is it something that is sustainable? Is it something that must be a cause for alarm? Is it something that must raise suspicions? Today we're going to be discussing on our show, and I have my esteemed guests seated in the studio to help me discuss the performance of the economy for us to know whether indeed it is sustainable. We have seen press conferences and press releases from different sides of the economy, whether from government or from minority, attacking this phenomenon. Some are saying that it is only a political gimmick. Others are also saying that this is the relief we prayed for a change in government. We'll take some very critical look at this today on our main discussion segment with my guest, as I mentioned. And I'm very happy to join you in your homes, in your cars, wherever you're finding yourself this morning for us to discuss matters of the economy. My name is Kweku Atakra Jumo, and I'm your host for today. And if you are just tuning in, again, you're welcome to the Focus on Z101.9 FM. You can listen to us on www.zmultimedia.com, or you can join us. You are streaming live on Facebook, also on ZFMGH. ZFMGH. You get to see my beautiful and well-dressed guests seated in the studio. If you have any comment, do well to send it to us on 0544321019. 0544321019. We are happy to take it. We'll take a very short break here. When we come back, we'll take news from around the world. Don't go away.
Z 101.9 FM.
Over Satan power, 'cause I ain't good more. I'm an overcomer. Yes, we're doing good more. Over Satan power, I didn't more. See, I'm an overcomer. I say yes, wedding kuni.
Yes, wedding kuni. Over Satan power. Desire in kuni. I'm an overcomer.
I say yes, wedding kuni more.
Yes, wedding kuni. Over Satan power. Desire in kuni. I'm an overcomer.
I'm a now, I'm into Hosanna.
Hosanna.
I am for Hinarba.
Hosanna.
Jesus Narbano.
Hosanna.
I am for Hinarba.
Hosanna.
I'm into Hosanna.
Hosanna.
Jesus Narbano.
Hosanna.
I mean, I won't burn a set.
Hosanna.
Jesus Narbano. Who is this King of glory? He's the Lord strong and mighty. Yes, we didn't kunima. See, I'm an overcomer. Listen, no weapon fashioned against me shall prosper. For the greater one lives in me, yes, it does. Yes, yes, we didn't kunima. See, I'm an overcomer. I say, yes, we didn't kunim.
Yes, wedding kuni.
I will say,
Over Satan power. Desire in kuni.
see, I'm an overcomer.
I'm an overcomer.
I say, yes, we didn't kunim.
Yes, wedding kuni. Over Satan power. Desire in kuni. I'm an overcomer.
I'm a ding now, I'm into Hosanna.
Hosanna.
I am for Hinarba.
Hosanna.
Jesus Narbano.
Hosanna.
I am for Hinarba.
Hosanna.
I'm into Hosanna.
Hosanna.
I mean, I won't bother say. Jesus Narbano. I am for Hinarba. Kojo, come on.
If you're just joining us, you're still welcome to the Focus on Z101.9 FM, your lifestyle, leisure, and business platform. On the Focus, we put matters of Ghana first. And this past week, we've had news from Ghana, very interesting news from Ghana and around the world. And starting with Ghana, the National Investigations Bureau has pulled its personnel from the Kumasi residence of Bernard Ntwibu, popularly known as Chairman Wuntumi, following a failed arrest attempt that led to a tense standoff with supporters of the opposition New Patriotic Party. The early Friday morning operation involved a joint team of national security and police officers who surrounded Ashanti Regional MPP chairman's home in the Daban area, triggering confusion and unrest. Authorities have not yet disclosed the reasons behind the attempted arrest or the raid. And also, the Ghana Health Services has announced a rise in mpox, that's monkeypox, cases, bringing the total number recorded in the country to 8. The development has prompted renewed public health concerns about potential local transmission. The Deputy Director of Surveillance at the GHS, Dr. Dennis Odai Lai, disclosed the figures in a media interview yesterday. He noted that the cases were currently concentrated in the Greater Accra and Western regions, with 4 cases reported in each area. And if we turn our attention to our neighboring country, Ivory Coast, the Ivorian court has dismissed the legal challenge against Tijani Thiam's leadership of the Democratic Party of Cote d'Ivoire, clearing the way for him to remain head of the opposition party despite questions over his nationality. The challenge was brought by Valérie Japo, a member of the party's political bureau, who claimed Thiam was ineligible due to allegedly losing his Ivorian citizenship after acquiring French nationality in 1987. She argued this violated party rules. The court ruled the case inadmissible on May 22, 2025, effectively affirming Thiam's position as party leader. And also in Angola, the 2025 US-Africa Business Summit, set to take place in Luanda, Angola from June 22 to 25, is expected to catalyze transformative partnerships between the US and African nations. Marking the first major dialogue between the current US and African leadership, the summit will focus on redefining US trade policy and economic engagement across key African value chains. Hosted by Corporate Council on Africa (CCA), in collaboration with the Angolan government, the event will bring together over 1,500 participants, including African heads of state, US officials, CEOs, investors, and thought leaders. And if we turn our attention to the international front, a US judge has issued a temporary restraining order halting the Trump administration's attempt to bar Harvard University from enrolling international students. The decision follows a lawsuit filed by Harvard, marking the latest chapter in an escalating conflict between the university and the White House. Harvard argued that the administration's move was a blatant violation of legal and free speech protections. The Trump administration has accused Harvard of failing to adequately address anti-Semitism and reform its hiring and admissions policies. It claims that the university has firmly rejected it. And also, scenes of chaos have unfolded in Gaza as limited food aid trickling in after a partial lifting of the Israeli blockade has proven insufficient to meet rising hunger. Overwhelmed bakeries were forced to shut down on Thursday while an aid convoy was attacked by armed looters overnight. A firefight broke out between the attackers and Hamas security forces, who were reportedly hit by an Israeli drone strike during the clash. The incident, described by eyewitnesses, local journalists, and Hamas officials, highlights the growing insecurity in Gaza amid a collapse in governance and increasing lawlessness. And interestingly, the US President Donald Trump has reignited trade tensions on Friday, May 23, 2025, threatening to impose a 50% tariff on all European Union exports to the United States. He has also warned of a potential 25% import tax on iPhones not manufactured in the US. The renewed tax threats came just hours before scheduled trade talks between the US and the EU. Trump had previously announced a 20% tariff on most EU goods, but reduced it to 10% until July 8 to allow room for negotiations. And also, French authorities have arrested 55 men in a nationwide operation aimed at dismantling a pedophile network operating through the messaging app Telegram, according to the Office for the Protection of Minors. The arrest took place between Monday and Thursday morning, with suspects ranging in age from 25 to 75. Investigators say the men were in contact with an extremely dangerous child sex offender who was jailed in mid-2024 after his own children were rescued from abuse. Quentin Bivan, head of Min's operating unit, described the case as deeply disturbing and part of a broader effort to clamp down on online child exploitation networks. Thank you very much for staying with us. We'll take a very short breather, and when we come back, we're going to be having a conversation on the economy and whether its performance we are seeing today is sustainable. Should those of us who are rejoicing over the fall in the dollar continue to rejoice? Or those who are not rejoicing because of the fall in dollar, should there be hope for them? We'll have an in-depth conversation about it when we come back from our break. Stay tuned, don't go away. It's still the focus on Z101.9 FM, your lifestyle, leisure, and business radio.
You're tuned in to Z 101.9 FM, your lifestyle, leisure, and business radio.
Thank you for staying with us. Still the focus on Z101.9 FM, your lifestyle, leisure, and business radio. And before we talk about the dollar, let me introduce you to Tabby Mart. It's a shop that is not affected by the increase or the decrease in dollar prices. It only considers your pocket and gives you that which is affordable on the pocket. And Tabby Mart is a retail of classic wristwatches for men and women. Whatever form or type of wristwatch you need, you can contact Tabby Mart on 026-268-3489, 026-268-3489, or you can reach them on IG mytabbymart.gh, and Tabby is spelled Tabi, mytabbymart.gh. So this weekend, you have a birthday coming up, you have somebody's graduation coming up, you can get your classic watch as a gift from My Tabby Mart, and you can reach them on 0262-683-489. Now, as mentioned, today we're going to be having a conversation about the performance of the economy. We're going to be looking at whether the economy we find today is that which is sustainable. As I've said, a lot of people think it is not real. How can we just go to bed one day, come back after a week, and we notice that the dollar has almost gotten to a half its value? And in fact, the governor of the Bank of Ghana has also been speaking recently, which we will take a listen to shortly. But I have joined with me in studio Dr. Obin, Dr. Kenneth Kwadwo Obin, who is a private businessman, a financial consultant, an analyst, and an entrepreneur. He has over 30 years experience in finance, business, investment, and risk analyst. He holds a doctorate in accounting. He holds an MBA in finance. He's a chartered accountant, a chartered banker, and has a postgraduate diploma in investment and risk analysis from Queen's University in Canada. He's currently a member of the Council Subcommittee on Finance of the Chartered Institute of Bankers, Ghana, and a member of the Publications Committee of the Institute of Internal Auditors, Ghana. He was also a member of the Council Subcommittee on Education of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, Ghana. He has also served on many boards and committees in both the public and private sectors of Ghana. With a very impressive profile, please help me in welcoming Dr. Obin to the studio. Doctor, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Kweku.
And you can tell, if you're joining us on Facebook, you can see the elegant smock worn by Dr. Clearly, this was not affected by the dollar price. This one purely from the Ghanaian city.
Yes.
Yeah, and we will be joined shortly online by Mr. Asare, who would also be joining us, help us have a conversation, a discussion on the performance of the economy. But before we have a conversation, I want us to take a listen to the recent presser from the governor of the Bank of Ghana.
For the media. Honorable members of the Monetary Policy Committee, distinguished colleagues and invited officials. Good morning and welcome to the 124th meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana. Colleagues, we convene at a time when Ghana's macroeconomic conditions are exhibiting early signs of stabilization, supported by recent policy actions and improving external and domestic fundamentals. But the path ahead remains complex and fraught with risks, both global and domestic. And this underscores the importance of today's meeting and the decisions we are set to make. Let me begin, colleagues, by acknowledging the robust technical discussions which took place during last week at the staff level meetings. The enriched format now involving both our internal advisors, as I have introduced them, as well as the external MPC members. This new framework has significantly sharpened our focus on key policy issues, and I encourage staff to maintain this momentum as we delve into today's presentations. Since our last meeting, we have witnessed further moderation in inflation. According to the GSS, the inflation rate declined to 21.2% last month of April, down from previous highs, but still well above our medium-term target band of 8 plus or minus 2%, and breaching the upper consultation band of 19. This path has been shaped by a combination of monetary tightening, relative exchange rate stability, and easing non-food inflation. In March, the committee responded decisively to the inflation outlook by raising the policy rate by 100 basis points to 28%. Preliminary evidence right now suggests this action has contributed to dampening inflation momentum. And importantly, the cedi has appreciated sharply by nearly 19% between April and May, helping to ease imported inflation pressures and restoring public confidence. The appreciation of the cedi reflects a combination of factors, including prudent monetary policy, the improved market sentiment, as well as the external sector gains that we are witnessing. We are also seeing encouraging signs of macroeconomic progress. For example, Ghana has reached a staff-level agreement with the IMF regarding the fourth review of the ECF program. And although some prior actions remain outstanding, the trajectory is clearly positive. Now, you also would have heard about the recent S&P upgrade of Ghana's sovereign rating from a selective default to CCC positive, which further affirms this progress. Our external reserves have strengthened, and the trade balance has improved, as well as the consumer and business confidence indices rising steadily. However, significant challenges persist. The inflation outlook, while improving, remains vulnerable to second-round effects. Food supply constraints are still with us, especially from northern Ghana and the Sahel, and external price shocks, particularly given volatile global commodity markets. There are also geopolitical tensions and evolving global trade dynamics, including.
So you just heard the voice of the governor of the Bank of Ghana giving us an update on our economic performance. And I must say that I've also been joined online by Mr. Sylvester Asare, as I mentioned earlier, who's a financial analyst and who has worked previously as the head of research and planning department of the bank, who is now retired. Mr. Asare, you're welcome to the show. Hello, Mr. Asare, can you hear me? Okay, I guess we're having a slight challenge online. We'll fix it and rectify it shortly. So moving straight into the conversation, Dr. Abing.
Yes.
In fact, this sharp decline in the dollar has come at, I don't know whether we expected it or we did not expect it. Maybe let's start from where you sit as an economic analyst. I know you can see into the future more than we can. Was this something that was expected? And if it was expected, was it expected at this time?
Well, thank you, Kweku, and good morning to your listeners, and a good time to have me here, because everyone is interested in the dollar.
Yeah.
And it cuts across every field of the business environment as far as our country is concerned.
Yeah.
Let me say that the fluctuations in the exchange rates is something that has lived with us over a long period of time.
Yeah.
Every Ghanaian every day looks at exchange rate. It shouldn't have been like that.
Yeah.
But the situation that we find ourselves as far as dependence of the economy to external influences and so on and so forth, good taste for foreign products and others is something that has really affected our currencies, and then also the basic production that should be able to keep our economy going and improving exports is something that has really affected our currency. Let me say that the appreciation in the cedi is something that we have all expected. In fact, most of us have expected that. Because when you look at these recent elections, you all confirm that the exchange rate was a very big factor. And, you know, as at the last quarter of 2024, the cedi was hitting 16, 17 cedis per dollar, and it was really suffocating into the system. But I agree that people are a bit agitated because people, you know, bring in a lot of dollars from outside, and they have always been happy cashing in at those high cedi exchange rates. So depending on those funds that flow in and to those few individuals who expect those funds to help them based on the high cedi rate, is where they have been apprehended in one way or the other. But to the field of production and to the field of, you know, economic management, it is something that is prudent, very necessary that the cedi should come down. Actually, if you ask me, I don't really look at what is happening as, let's say, a cedi appreciation.
Yeah.
I term it as a recovery. That is the way I want to put it. Why should I say it's a recovery? It's a recovery because the cedi used not to be like that. It used to be a stable currency. Maybe when we take the period that we did the redenomination, and then that time 1 cedi was equal to $1. And suddenly, a few years, just about 20 years, and we are thinking about 1 cedi equaling around 16, 17 cedis. And that is a serious depreciation of the cedi. We normally talk about appreciation of a currency when the currency is relatively stable and certain factors that normally lead to increased production and others lead to the currency sort of gaining a little grounds over its stabilized positions. But where you have a free fall, then there are certain fundamental factors that would have affected the economy, and based on which the currency begins to fall continuously. And when those factors begin, we realize ourselves and we begin to, pick up those fundamental issues and start addressing them. You will see the currency beginning to reverse. And when the currency is reversing, then in that case, it is not really appreciating, but rather it is recovering to try to go and stabilize.
So it's going back to its normal stage.
Exactly. It's going back to its normal stage. So now that we are happy, shouting, appreciation.
You think it's a recovery rather than appreciation?
In fact, that is the way I see it. And we need to go further, because when you look at the statistics from the period after redenomination of the cedi till this period spanning close to 20 years, on the average, if the cedi had worked well, I would have said that, look, this currency should not have been more than 5 cedis to $1. If we had worked our economy well based on the fundamentals. Remember the popular saying that when the fundamentals are weak,
you'll be exposed.
Yes,
the exchange rate.
The exchange rate will expose you.
Yeah.
But indeed, it's not only the exchange rate, but there are other factors like inflation and then the productivity and others would all expose you, not only even the exchange rate.
Right,
So,
but Doc, sorry, not to cut you short. I mean, I like the fact that you introduced the redenomination. Now, because when the redenomination was introduced, there was a lot of conversation about it being very artificial.
Yes.
That some finance people just take the currency, artificially delete 4 zeros or so, and tell us that we have come to. So it means that we deleted the inflation on paper and just rechanged the currency. Was it something that was going to sustain? Because then a lot of people now think that now that redenomination wasn't something that was natural. So it was just something to just make us have some confidence in the economy. And now we have seen the true state of the economy after the redenomination. Isn't that also a factor for us having the cedi depreciate to this point of almost 17 cedis earlier this year?
Yeah, I would say yes and no. Yes, with the fact that the time we redenominated, the pegging the dollar to the cedi was not something that was seriously scientific.
Okay.
As you rightly said, some figures were taken out and quickly rolled into the pegging the cedi to $1. In fact, I did my master's program project work on the redenomination of the cedi at that time.
Okay.
That was at GIMPA. And those factors as to how we'll be able to sustain the currency up to or going forward was a very major factor that then my professor supervisor was seriously hammering on that point, that pegging the dollar to the cedi at that time 1-on-1 was a major fundamental issue that was to put pressure on Ghanaians to be able to sustain that rate. And I would say no, because anytime an economy is developing, we should have a plan. And that plan must be a national plan. It is something that we all need to work towards attaining it.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about sustaining what we are calling appreciation of the cedi. How do we sustain it? It should be a collective effort, and it should go by a plan.
Right, but we'll come to how to sustain. In fact, we'll come to look at the underpinnings behind this fall. But again, we want to find out from your economic standpoint.
Yeah.
The sharp fall in the dollar, again, is it natural? Because even if we go by the analysis from, let's say, 2007 to 2025, which is about, if my math is correct, about 18 years.
Yes.
Is it 18 or 16?
Yeah, about 18.
Yeah, let's say 18. About 18 years, if it's increased to about 17 cedis. Now, just in the space of about 3 months, we have seen it, as of yesterday, I knew it was about 10.8 or so.
Yeah.
Isn't the fall too sharp for us to now think that it is very artificial?
Well, that's a very serious question. But let me take it from one angle. And if I could remember the former BOG governor, we had a program recently, the Institute of Bankers Ghana, and then that was the Governor's Day, and he gave a very good background to the cedi, the fall, and others. But the point that he made was that you could manipulate the exchange rate and cause it to appreciate if that is what Ghanaians wanted. So even along the line, just close to December, you could see the dollar was falling, and it came down to around 14 and then coming down towards 13.
Yeah.
That was certainly an artificial way of doing it by the BOG, pushing more dollars into the system and then probably reducing some of the demand for it, especially cutting short some of these dollars and others. And remember, the government also introduced this gold for oil program where, much gold was, issued out in exchange for the oil, and therefore, in that circumstance, you could preserve your dollars.
Yeah.
And in that rate, you see the dollar, appreciating, as we said. And I think as this government also came in, that same gold for oil has not ceased. It's still ongoing. And then also we have seen an increase in gold prices. And then we have also seen the government coming into pass laws that set up the gold board and others that are sustaining more gold in the system and likely causing an appreciation of the dollar. I will not say it is artificial for now, because we have seen some improvement in government's fiscal policies. One important thing that is really pushing the dollar down has been the world market influences.
But if I will come to look at the factors again which are underpinning. But let me turn quickly to Mr. Sari.
Hi.
Yes, sir. Good morning, and you're welcome to the Focus on Z101.9 FM.
Good morning, and thanks for inviting me.
Yes, sir. I mean, I'm guessing you've been following the conversation so far. We are looking at the performance of the economy, and we are looking at the sustainability of it. Now, at this stage, we have been considering whether this sharp fall in the dollar is artificial.
Okay, very interesting, and I have to congratulate my senior boss there. He has given a good account of the topic as to whether a good performance or whether it's sustainable depends on what we are looking for. I do remember, and I think you also remember, when President Akufo-Addo began, within the first 6 months, a major headline title was just 6 months in office and the economy is performing better. So about a year for him to leave, another major headline in the newspapers, the economy will bounce back. The president assures. You see, beginning he says, we are performing better within 6 months. A year to go, we are saying we are going to bounce back. It means they couldn't sustain. And it's a major issue. People would expect inflation to go down, especially people in government. They want the city to improve, to have a higher value. But is that what Ghanaians want? Is that what the people want? I remember Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr. one time saying that, we say you have brought down inflation, Is it inflation that you are going to consume? We eat inflation? So I don't know whether people are looking for better exchange rate or lower inflation. The people are looking for things that can sustain life. Education for our people, water for our community, housing. These are the issues. Of course, if your currency is not stable, you'll not be able to do those things. But you are not going to have these things in place of development. And it's a major issue.
Right, but in here, Mr. Sari, what we're also trying to interrogate is the fact that we saw the dollar rise very steadily to about 17 cedis earlier this year. And today, as I speak with you, the dollar is about 10 point, maybe 5 or 6, depending on where you find it. Yeah.
Fantastic.
There's been a lot of conversation about the fact that it looks like it's just an artificial thing. We're just trying to put it in to probably whether win a political approval from some people. And even before going to the underpinnings of it, we want to find out from where you sit. Like, do you think that indeed it's quite artificial? Because I was even asking Dr. Obing that we've seen that the CD, or we've seen the CD depreciate from 2007 to about 2017 to about just 17 cedis. And just in a space of about 3 months or 4 months, we have seen it go to, we've seen about 7 cedis off. So then if we do the mathematics, if everything follows through steadily, then I'm sure by September we are going back to 1 cedi, or no, let's say by December, we're going back to 1 cedi, $1. Which in 1 year, doesn't it look suspicious?
Well, whether it's suspicious or not, depends on what you did to bring this improvement.
Okay.
You remember when Mr. Kufuor was around, 1 cedi was $1.
Yeah.
And Doc mentioned it. We slashed 4 zeros away.
Maybe you can say that we created the 1 cedi to become $1.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I will begin from the fact that we slashed 4 zeros.
Yeah.
To make the cedi more portable.
Yeah.
You know, money performs certain functions as a medium of exchange, as a unit of account, and also as a source of value. If you are carrying so many zeros behind your figure, then you are not going to be able to carry money around. How are you going to put your money in your pocket to go and buy? I remember during those days, what was the name? That military man, a tampon.
Okay.
There was a cartoon in the United Nations paper. We call it Development Forum. I don't know what that's still there. There's a cartoon there. A saloon car packed with money, and they wrote under it, Ghanaians need car loads of money to go shopping. It means if you went to a shop to go and buy, you carry the money in your sack. But when we are returning home, we carrying the item in our pocket, which is very serious.
That's probably what happened in Zimbabwe not too long ago.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And therefore, to make money perform its function, that make it more portable, so that it can perform its function as a mutual person, you needed to do that, and it was done. But how are you going to sustain it? I remember those days when Kufuor came, inflation was 40.5%. I remember going to the party office there. I went there and said, look, something must be done. And I know somebody who can do this. I cannot. But the man will be able to do something about it. And they said, oh, you, when we were doing the campaign, where were you? Now, I said, no, I'm not the party man. I don't have a card. The man I'm recommending to, I haven't told him, but I don't know the party he belongs to. But I know the man has got the staff. They called him. And when he went there, they introduced the 4-year bond, what we call the GIL. Those days, treasury bill rates was around 23, 24. He said, no, you need a long-term bond so that take the money from the people. So he introduced the bond, 4-year bond. The rate was raised to 42, which meant that if you carry the CD, you take that bond, you get 42% at the end of the year. If you carry the dollar, you don't get that money. So people started buying the bond. When you start buying the bond, they were throwing away the dollar. And therefore, because they didn't want the dollar fell. And it came to $1. They didn't just force it. It was through a policy that let us introduce a bond. For us to be able to sustain, it meant that once you raise a bond, you have borrowed.
Yeah.
How are you going to pay back that amount you have borrowed? So if you raise that bond and you went to use it for school feeding, for instance, 4 years' time, you are going to pay back the bond to the people, the holders, right?
Yeah.
How are you going to pay? Because the school students are still in school. They haven't finished. What is the payback? So when you take the bond, you have to put in an investment which can give back the payment. If you didn't do that, you're inviting trouble.
Yeah.
But the fact is that for us to determine whether this is artificial or not, then we look at what have we done to bring the rate down.
Right. Right.
What we have done, if it's sustainable, then it is sustainable. One major factor has been the Trump card. Mr. Trump brought the Trump issue, but it was the Chinese who won the Trump card. And
Yeah, we'll come to look at the influence of our international partners and in fact the influence of the trade war. But let's turn our attention to the presser that was given by the governor of the Bank of Ghana.
Yes.
Now he
Bank
raised.
of Ghana now.
Yes.
We say we are introducing the what do you call it, the gold reserves. They are good. I must say that if we say the thing is not good, then we're not being fair. For instance, from December 31st to now, just 5 months, as at 24 when I did the checking, the CD has appreciated, because that's fine, but 24%, right? And the dollar to the CD has suffered depreciation by 19.39%. Why? Because you see, one before left and the one CD was equal to $1, it meant $1, one CD was 100 cents.
Yeah.
By December 2012, 4 years, the CD had moved from 100 to 53 cents. And that meant that 46.9% of the currency had gone off within 4 years. In fact, as Doc said, the dollar should not be more than 5%. In fact, after 2019, 31st, the dollar was 5.5337. That meant that the CD had fallen from 100 to 18 cents. Because, in fact, the dollar is not our money.
Yeah.
Let's look at our own CD. What is the value of our CD in dollars? By using the reciprocal. It means that the CD with 100 cents is now 18 cents after December 2019.
Yeah.
After the year end 2024, it had dwindled 6 cents, in fact 6.8 cents. So for you to go back to 8.4% within 5 months is huge. That's 24% appreciation. And no government has done that before. And therefore, we have to commend whatever we did to bring it down like that.
Right.
But the question is that sustainable?
That's where we are coming to, Mr. Sari.
If for instance we grew more cocoa,
Yeah.
we did that, the product supplies, and we are able to raise the value of our economy, and it is reflecting in your currency, then that's fine. But if it is through the monetary policies are applied, I think in the short term, when you are having instability and you want to bring about some kind of easiness in the economy, then Bank of Ghana, the central bank, will introduce these monetary policy tools to ensure stability. But if you don't do the long-term planning thing, which is supply production, how long are you going to be able to sustain monetary policy? Because as Lord King said, any country which tends to control demand, it is economically unwise. Because you have to go into production. You've got to do this.
Yeah.
And you sustain life through these measures. So anything that we do to bring the dollar down, whether by accident or by our own design, you ask yourself, am I able to sustain this? Are we going to continue buying the gold? Even the gold.
Mr. Sari, you introduced a very interesting thought there on production, and I want you to hold it there briefly. Let me just quickly turn to Dr. Albin. I'm going to come back to you again on the production. But Dr. Albin, you see that from the Bank of Ghana governor's presser, he spoke of one of the appreciating factors has been the non-food inflation.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit more about it? I mean, Mr. Sari has highlighted it, but we want to look at it from then. We'll go back to Mr. Sari to give us more detail on the production bit.
Well, as we started, exchange rate issues have very broad fundamental aspects that really come out with whatever the exchange rate is likely to be. It's not only inflation. Probably the immediate factor that is worrying this country is this inflation subject. And the government is really determined to reduce this interest rate projected at around 12% by close of this year.
But doctor, if you can help our listeners appreciate, when we see food inflation, what is it?
You know, inflation is caused by many factors.
Yes.
And it's basically what you need to spend and at what price. And in our part of this world, we spend a lot on food. When you take your salary, in this country, we spend close to 40% of our salaries on food. And therefore, when you are calculating the inflation rate, it forms a greater part of the basket that you use to collect the data that we use to calculate the inflationary rate. Non-food is the other aspects of inflationary causes, which include housing, utilities, and others that do not form part of food. Utilities, for instance, is one major factor that also affects inflation, because most of the industries depend on electricity, water, and others. And when the rates are raised by the PRC and others, it tends to affect production, and it will make the prices go up. So this non-food aspect is very critical. And in our country here, the most important factor is the utilities. And then also we have imports of other goods and services, which the Ghanaian have a very good taste, for foreign products, including even clothing.
Yeah.
And that is where we have a challenge. And then also we have crude oil imports that also affect inflation wherever there are such issues in the Middle East and other countries that produce this oil. sometimes we have been wondering that why do we have fuel, or why do we produce crude, but we have all these challenges. The point is that most of the crude we produce in this country is by foreigners. So they price them in the international market prices, and it tends to affect our consumption, which goes to affect production and therefore high prices. So the inflation he spoke about is made up of both the food and the non-food aspects. And when you take food, like Mr. Sari was talking about, we are still not able to produce enough. Our food baskets areas are all still not doing well. The North, the Afram Plains and others. And even when they produce, transporting it down is also an issue.
Yeah.
And all those tend to affect, the prices when it gets to the urban areas where the consumption is high and therefore the expenditure is high and tends to affect the inflation rates.
So then is that going to suggest then that now that we see the dollar fall, it means that our internal production has increased?
No, not really. Not really. I think the fall in the dollar now, as we raised certain factors. One, the Trump issues, which is affecting the dollar externally by itself, are still depending on the gold for oil, which is creating some kind of reserve and reducing the demand for the dollar. And one particular point is also on the government fiscal expenditure I mentioned. One great thing that has happened to us is the reduction in the number of ministers that this government has created.
Oh, you think that has affected the dollar?
Yes, I believe strongly.
How so?
How so? Because it has reduced government expenditure. Look, we used to have 123 ministers or so in the first governance of Nana Akufo-Addo.
Yeah.
And this was reduced to around 98 or so in the second term also. When you say that in a country, you have a minister in our part of the world here, it is a huge expenditure. Go to Kenya. Kenya had around 26 ministers of state or so. They were increased to 28, and there was wahala at the place as for why the ministers have been increased like that.
Yeah.
When you have a huge number of ministers, it results in huge government expenditure. And now that we have that reduced number, it is clear that government expenditure is gone down. The external traveling, the expenditures and others are likely something that is going to improve or even has started improving on our dollar expenditures. And then when you look at the fact that we have also not resumed payment of our external debts, it's also something that is creating some buffer for us. And when we start paying for these external debts that have been outstanding as a result of these haircuts that we did, plus renegotiating our debts and spreading it into the future, as some factors that have reduced the effect and the pressure on the dollar. And remember,
but it's very interesting the bit staying a bit more on the reduction in minister size. I mean, there's not something many people have thought about.
Yeah, that is where people are not seeing. It is a very big factor, and I believe, and Dr. Baumia also promised to reduce the number of ministers to 50. They all know the effect of holding a huge government.
But isn't the case that, in fact, one of the reasons why the previous government justified why they should have a larger size is that they were introducing newer sectors into the economy. So some new ministries were created, some ministries were split so that they can be able to focus directly on some aspects of the economy.
Did we get that result? We never had it. This is because in public sector government, public sector governance, it is not just creating ministries, and it is just not creating ideas. It is fundamental productivity that you have to use in creating those structures that will be able to hold government business. When you expand government business, look at US, look at UK. How many ministers of state do they have? How many ministries or government states departments do they have? Economy is more driven by private sector.
Yeah.
If you want government to drive an economy, you mess up.
Yeah.
Surely you mess up. So you need more private sector involvement rather than creating more government structures that even end up adding more bureaucracy onto the system and more pressure on your expenditure.
Which ought to have created productivity.
No, because productivity is absolutely not done by government.
But it can be facilitated
Yes.
by government.
Yeah, so in the course of facilitating, you don't create more bureaucracies. You don't increase the wage bills. You don't increase the international affiliations of government institutions for them to go put pressure on the city. So when you do that, you are on the wrong path. So creating more ministries, creating more ministers, and Kweku, have you thought about how to sustain one minister in this country?
That's true.
Yes. On an annual basis, when I did my check, on annual basis, you want to sustain a minister, you are talking about close to over 20 million Ghana cedis to be able to sustain one minister.
Not his ministry, the minister himself.
No, the minister himself.
What goes into that amount?
That is why you have to ask. And we can make it another topic sometime.
So that means that if we're looking at, let's say, if we are expanding a ministry to about 40 ministers, we are looking at almost 100 million.
You are dead.
Of just the minister,
fact,
not
you
the
are dead.
ministry.
In fact, you are dead.
That's an interesting
Yes,
thought.
you are dead. What kind of vehicles are we using? And how many are attributed to one minister alone? What kind of accommodation are you talking about? What kind of, salaries and other benefits, traveling and so on and so forth? Recently, there was this Minister of Foreign Affairs recovering about 720 diplomatic passports.
Yeah.
What does this mean? These 720 people were holding diplomatic passports, and what was their rate of traveling outside?
Yeah.
Can you calculate that? How can a country do this to our own selves? And you expect your currency to be stable when you don't travel with CD? What do you need to travel with? And all these 720 people were going up and down. And one major factor that has also affected us is the dual nationalism of our government officials.
Okay.
One major factor is that when our MPs, our government appointees, especially our MDs and directors and others, most of them have dual citizenship. And what is the meaning of it, Kweku?
But as part of our laws, there are certain sectors that you can be there with a dual nationality.
Yes, that is correct. But below them,
those who don't fall part of that bracket.
Yes.
Okay.
And those people are also in a number of, they are in their numbers.
How does that affect our currency?
You need to go there. You need to travel there.
But that's just like any place. Like, I mean, people who hold American visas, a 5-year.
Very good.
You may go for like a week or two, just come back.
Very good. And you go and pay your taxes. Yes. And how do you go?
But isn't that just a small amount?
No,
if you look at it in the
isn't.
grand scheme of things.
No, it isn't.
Because then if you're traveling to America.
It isn't.
Okay.
Even the plane fare is how much? What is your salary in this country? You see, one major factor that also affects these currency issues is corruption.
Yeah.
Corruption is one major factor. And when you have government being the main source of production and others, because look, in this country, the contribution of the private sector is continuously dwindling and dwindling and dwindling. Kwaku, when you take the 70s, you take the 80s, and you take the 90s as our basis. In fact, from 2000 coming, the growth in this economy has basically been services. It has basically been services.
Yeah.
And out of this, government has to survive. That is why we've introduced so much taxes and others. And with all these taxes, even including income taxes, what are the earnings of the workers? What do they earn? When taxes are high, it tends to affect inflation, it tends to affect production, and it tends to affect your currency also. So when we are not producing, because look, all our productions have been on the down floor right from the 2000s coming. Take agriculture, take, let's say, basically cocoa or foodstuffs. Everything is virtually gone. Then we turned our eyes on gold. When we turned our eyes on gold, what happened? With this galamsey, look, I come from Amansie in the Ashanti region. And the Affais River that we used to bath in when we were children, I tell you, Kweku, when you go there today, when you go there, you weep. The whole area that used to be a forest area that we used to descend down into the riverside has been flattened by bulldozers. So now when you are looking for more gold to go and do gold for oil, to go and do more gold to back your currency and others, you are degrading the environment, condemning and destroying all the cocoa and other products that used to support the economy. What is our cocoa production today? And even foodstuffs. What is the labor? When we introduced free SHS, we didn't plan ahead as for where the children will be to support the farmers at the farms. Our school calendar got disrupted. And the time that would have had long vac and others when we used to go and support our parents in the village because they are aged. Now
but Doc, I mean, yes, this point well appreciated, but again, won't we say that these are like just the very small aspects that is affecting our currency?
No, they are not.
Because I can appreciate, let's say, corruption.
Yes.
Which is a huge factor.
Very good.
But let's say with the introduction of the free SHS, the change in calendar, yes, we know it has. But was it so great that it's able to shoot our currency to 17 cities?
It is. It is because production, labor for agric was virtually gone. Labor for cocoa was virtually gone. And even the farming times and others are all gone. You see? And the land has also been degraded by galamsey and other, factors.
Right.
So all these have affected production. Now you have to turn to Burkina Faso to go and import food. And how are we going to survive under that?
Right, Doc, let me quickly turn to Mr. Asare. And Mr. Asare.
Hi.
Yes, sir. So now we're looking, before we turn our eyes to look at the external factors of the bigger conversation of the trade wars and all that, Dr. Obey has been enlightening us on some unconventional, let me put it that way, factors internally, which in his estimation has or did affect our city, especially from the size of ministers to dual nationalism and to corruption. What do you think about it?
It's quite interesting. Size of ministers, I'm yet to know the real effect of this size of ministers. Because when you create a ministry and you later dissolve the head of the ministry, the political head, the civil servants are still there. In fact, you don't sack them, they remain there. And sometimes they move them from the ministry and they are placed at the head of the presidency. And you stick to them there. So when you are counting the number of ministers, you may want to go down and count the number of appointees there who are not proper so-called ministers, but they take the same salary as a minister. I'm yet to know exactly the size of that. And when it comes to corruption, certainly, corruption will certainly affect your currency and your inflation. Because when you price things out of the norm, you put pressure on government. So when you do all the right things, then inflation will come down. As of now, I don't know exactly whether we have been able to reduce corruption and whether we have been able to have a real effect on the size of ministers by just changing the nomenclature from Minister of Trade into the ministry desk at the presidency. I'm yet to know. I will not say that we haven't done anything, except that I want to see the evidence of what has actually happened, apart from the goals and then the Trump issues. And because I think the basic thing has been monetary policy.
Yeah.
Monetary policies are meant to be short term, and therefore you cannot say that I'm gaining. That time when we had a discussion at La Pamboya, and Dr. Sowa, 2 years, he was saying you could follow this trend and blah, blah. So I raised up my hand. I said, Dr. Sowa, are you using 2 points to draw a trend line? Because just 2 years, in the third year, do you know where the point will be? There was one man from Barbados who came to say that in their country, they have conquered inflation, they have brought the currency down, blah, blah, blah. And I said, so at the expense of what? How did you get inflation down? How did you get the currency to be stable? What did you do? What was the expense? What is your level of employment? Then the man was standing there. He said, look, when you do this and you don't have employment, you are not going to be able to sustain your development. Yeah. Because you are not here to bring down inflation. Yeah. You are here to produce for the people. And when you produce the things for the people, then inflation itself will come down.
Yeah.
But when my wife is having a BP, we come and give her Adomet, come and give her export, then the pressure goes down. He continues to eat the pork. Then you always continue to eat the export and then the Adomet, unless you change your lifestyle. So I think we need serious people to manage our economies. Since Kwame Nkrumah's days, I think there has been a serious mislink. Even this from Nkrumah, we have been mentioning Nkrumah. Nkrumah had the best economic advisor, right? But when you look at the industries that were built, lack of linkages. I did the work at Akumadine Tomatoes. When I went to Akumadine, tomatoes were getting rotten. Then I went to Wenchi. There was a tomato mango factory there. They didn't have raw materials to produce, but the tomatoes were getting rotten at Akumadine. I said, why? Because when they were building the factory at Wenchi, they didn't factor that they would need tomatoes and therefore they will link, even if it's our growers, what would be the pricing mechanism so that we're able to feed that factory. So the factory was there, ugly, and Aquadine people too could not sell their tomatoes, and the whole thing collapsed. So unless you get people who understand these issues and bring linkages, right now tomatoes are buying tomatoes from Burkina or up there when they don't have water. We are complaining. In fact, one thing I would say is that in Ghana, we are able to count the things that we don't have. But the things that we have, we don't see them.
That's interesting.
We are having the water at Weja here, the Weja Dam.
Yeah.
Every year we spill. If we bought a water pump, just a pumping machine, to drive the water to what we are seeing that area and build a sub dam there, and we are using that to do irrigation. Throughout the year, we can have food. But we just take like the easy things, just steal it. They announce, please move. Is that way to manage things to get the thing to be more sustainable? I think it's through production and supply. I'm not saying that they haven't done anything. No. To bring your currency up by 24% is not mean achievement. But whether you're able to sustain it or not depends on the underlying issues. And that is production. If you don't do that, you are in fighting trouble.
But Mr. Said, from what you're saying, I get a sense that you recommend for us, like as we had from, is it the Champion era, the Operation Feed Yourself, where he advocated that we have homegrown production and we feed ourselves without import. You think that we can do that today?
We should, when we have a good leader, we should be able to do that. Then when you do that, you don't do it in isolation. You bring the linkages. When I grow my tomato and I get more than what I require, what happens to the rest? Do they just get rotten? Is there a factory where I can send it to? Look, I went around my area here. I was looking for somebody to come and pick the water bottles that I have used when I drink the water. The bottles are so many here. So I walked and I saw a lady who has been collecting them. I said, how do you buy them? I don't buy them. I said, no, I can send them to you. Because these bottles, when they get to the gutters, they get choked. So I said, come and take them for free. I will send them to you. Is there any policy by government that we are collecting all these materials which are choking our gutters, build a factory, and they do recycling? Nobody is interested. We want the cheap ones out. Just bring down inflation by putting water on the child who has got convulsion. Put water on him, and he recovers. We think it is gone. We are just forcing the temperature down, but the sickness is still there. So I will want to see more evidence and not monetary policy. Monetary policy is good only for the short term. When we started the prime rate, that was around 2,000 yes.
Yeah.
And we are still doing the policy rate.
Yeah.
Why? Because you cannot produce. If you cannot produce, control demand. Don't let people consume.
Exactly.
See? But when you are going to educate the people through free education, as Dr. said, your currency can go up because your expenditure will fill up.
Yeah.
How do you finance it? You cannot finance it by issuing treasury bills.
Yeah.
Because treasury 20 days you are going to pay.
Yeah.
You are going to school, you have not completed and it's working. You have to get a better way of financing it. We want foreigners to come and produce here. FDIs. What is the cost of FDIs? It's a huge cost. Yeah. Look, even the Momo that we do here, Momo, when you send your CD, it's all in CDs. But the company is an South African company. When they are repatriating their profit, you don't send CDs there. No. They will look for dollar. They produce CD here, do the Momo. When they are repatriating their profit back to South Africa, they demand dollars. And therefore, every Momo that you send out there, know that you have imported. If a foreigner comes here to produce water for you to buy, right, know that you are not buying made in Ghana. You are importing the water because at the end of the day, the money goes back there through repatriation. And so governments have to sit down, do proper planning, and let the Bank of Ghana, Central Bank, come in on for short-term basis. Because when the economy managers are not working hard, then Bank of Ghana will be working hard. Because Bank of Ghana is working hard because government fiscal policy is hardly working.
Yeah.
So either you are hardly working or you are hard working. And then Bank of Ghana is hard working. And those who are managing the economy are hardly working. Yeah. We need to take a critical look at it, put that on paper. We need some kind of planning, not just by a wish. Because when I'm coming to rule, my aim is to bring down inflation. So I go down, hey, I've done inflation. At the end of the 4 years, hey, please vote me again because I was able to hold down inflation. And I say, oh, but I needed food. I didn't get it. I wanted a hospital. I didn't get it. Yeah. But when you are building the hospital and you are doing the road and you are doing that one, make sure that you don't destroy the monetary stability.
Absolutely.
Through proper financing.
Mr. Stein, if you can just hold it here for just a brief, Dr. Obin wants to make a short contribution.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's made quite interesting points as far as sustaining this currency appreciation is concerned. And I just want to add that, look, and that is where we are now. I mean, trying to look at the sustainability of these appreciation issues.
Yeah.
And the point I want to cut across is that production is number one, but it must be based on plan.
Yes.
It must be based on plan. You know, since the last 7-year development plan that Nkrumah did, since then, everything has gone off. We have not had a national plan.
Yeah.
And successively, we have not had that political stability that is able to sustain an economy. All countries that have developed have had stable political, stability.
Yeah.
If you take the period from 1966 coming up, you see that there have been interruptions here and there, coup, others coming in. Sometimes we try to praise a champion with this operation, feed yourself, and so on and so forth, because at those periods we realized that things were getting out of hands. We need to improve on our own production locally in order to sustain the country, so that we don't depend so much on the external, imports and others, which have been killing us since that period. And he rightly also mentioned this industrialization and others, which would have helped these local small ones. We know Kufuor's time came in with this presidential initiative.
Special initiative.
And then also Kufuor came in with this one district, one factory issues, which could not really stand firm.
It was barely materialized.
Yeah. It wasn't, because of many factors that would need a long-term plan. You see, our democracy is such that those 4 years that are being done are not based on national plans. They are based on party manifestos. And when you say it's a party issue, it hasn't got the national backing, because then this political party thinks, their members think they have to be in control over that. Something like planting for food and jobs failed because it was party-based, and you employ your foot soldiers and other party members to go and cultivate for the nation. It will not work, because you don't have the background or the backing of the other party members. So lack of national plans is something that has affected this country so much. And until we have a national plan that we all follow, that one party comes into power, expands, and then the other party comes and says that I will not continue. When you take something like this Tema accommodation, what is the name? That on the Flower Road, which was abandoned by
Saglame.
Yes, Saglame, which was abandoned by the nice government.
Yeah.
And if you do this, whom are you destroying? It is your own country that you are destroying, your own currency. You have expended. And instead of somebody to continue, then it's abandoned. So the money is lost.
Right.
When you do this, your currency cannot be sustained. So as this government also comes in, Nana has initiated, this Agenda 111 and others. And it's a good thing that government says, look, I'll continue with it. And that is what we want to see.
So I think that there should be some continuity, so that we don't have abandoned projects.
Very good. So that the expenditures that we have made will continue to yield some kind of results. Not that you abandon it, all the monies are lost. Then we start another one altogether.
Yeah.
These are the things that pile up our debts.
Right.
When you look at our national debts, which was standing around 79% of our GDP and so forth, it means you are not surviving as a country. Because you borrow, you come and misspend the money, and at the end of the period, the debts are left simply because a few people want to be around as government and not at the interest of the members. But one good thing about sustaining this appreciation of this dollar, or the cedi against the dollar, is this 24-hour economy that government wants to introduce.
But it hasn't even started.
I think it should be starting. It should be starting because the way I understand the concept to have been, it's not the way probably government is looking at it. 24-hour economy should be something that every Ghanaian should be able to get involved. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because when you go outside, and we all go outside, when we go, we see what they do there. People do not less than one job outside there. We are still sitting in the colonial period where we go to work from 8 a.m. and close at 5 p.m. Why should we be doing this? And I've advocated for this on several platforms. I'm saying that government is the largest employer in this part of our world. It has come to a time that we should not work from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. because we will never increase productivity if we continue to do this.
Doc, let me hold you right. That's a very interesting thought.
Very good.
On productivity, you linking it to the 24-hour economy.
Exactly.
We need to look at even the external pressures, how we can even run from these external pressures
Exactly.
and look inwardly, boost our productivity.
Very
We'll come
good.
back to it, but I'll take a very short break here. And thank you very much for still staying with us. It's still the focus on Z101.9 FM, your lifestyle, leisure, and business radio. We'll take a very short breather here. When we come back, we'll be looking at productivity, external factors like the American and Chinese wars. What can we do so that we will not be caught in the middle of two elephants who are fighting? How is also going to improve our currency? Please do not go away. Stay tuned.
You're tuned in to Z101.9 FM, your lifestyle, leisure, and business radio. Z101.9 FM.
Dear mommy, control that. Zika ya mwade ma watching. Zika ye pampara. Zika ye moja. Zika ye moja. Zika ye moja. Zika ye moja. Dear mommy, control that. Zika ya mwade ma walking. Zika ye pampara. Zika ye moja. 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 Sikaye moja, sikaye moja, sikaye moja. Onyu wane yari, onyu wentum, onyu wentum didimpo. Sikaye oye moja pa. Onyu wenye nije, onyu wentu yashai. Onye sikaye moja, sikaye moja. Sikaye moja. Sika ma mofe. Sika me yibuwe. Sika ma hunta. Sika me bibiara. Sikaye moja pa. Wanka no kura. Sika nyamwa kura. Dema nyipada sa nyifre sikan. Mutumun sa sakra. Sikeya. Dear mommy, control that. Zika ya mwade ma wanan. Zika ye ni pampara. Zika ye moja.
101.9 FM.
Thank you very much for staying with us, and you've been listening to Pat Thomas. He says, Sika Yemoja. Indeed, money is what we need for our economy. And all we've been talking about today has been the appreciation of our monetary matters, looking at how our dollar is responding to the cedi. If you just tune in, you're still listening to us on the Focus on Z101.9 FM, your lifestyle, leisure, and business radio. Today, just before the break, we're talking about, and Doctor brought an angle of the 24-hour economy and how he thinks that the 24-hour economy is a great opportunity to help sustain our monetary matters. And Doctor is saying that he thinks that indeed the economic activity that the 24-hour economy is going to introduce into our economy, we won't need to even fall on external pressures. We will be insulated, right, Doctor?
That's right. As I said, Kweku, we have to shrug ourselves from colonial structures. Look, if government is the largest employer and we are still doing colonial yesa masa from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Kweku, because of accommodation issues, people wake up 4 a.m. because Accra, you can't rent a place.
Some even hits the road by 4 a.m. So they are awake about 3.
When the sprinter buses are coming, look inside, they are sleeping. That's the time you should be sleeping. So when you get to the station, then you wake up. Maybe even some people wash their faces small at the back.
Yeah, because some of them go back home 11, 12.
Yes, and by the time you get home, it's 10, 9, 10.
Yeah.
So the whole day is one job.
Yeah.
And I've said that, look, all our politicians, all our people, we go out there and we see that out there, they do not less than 2 jobs.
Yeah.
And Kwaku, even if you do one job and you get something, and you do another job and you get something, when the two are put together, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Yes, so then you have filled your pocket. Why should we work from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.? It is wrong.
But some people say we must achieve work-life balance.
Yes. A work-life balance means you do your work to suit the production and then get motivated that you have been able to achieve something. And you don't spend so much time on the job. Look, we don't need more than 6 hours doing our work in the government sector. I tell you, we don't need more than 6 hours. And we have laws that prevent us from doing more than one job. Yes. I will encourage government to take a second look at this. All these laws, they should sit down with the labor unions and renegotiate and get these laws, amended or repealed, and get people to be able to do more than one job. And that one job doesn't mean that even if you are working at Ministry of Labor, you cannot go and work at Ministry of Roads and Highways. We should be able to move away from that restrictions, that kind of secrecy or whatever, that when you work at one place, you may send the secret to another place and so on and so forth. We used to have watchmen at schools, if you remember. Probably you may be a little younger and you didn't know what was happening some times back. All schools had watchmen.
Yeah.
These watchmen go to their farms and then they return in the evening to come and do the watchmen overnight.
Okay.
That was double job. How will this person not be able to survive? How will this person not add to the productivity of the country?
Yeah.
And when you take these government workers, if we reduce the working hours, I'm telling you that they can spend the extra hours on their farms.
Yeah.
either animal husbandry or crop farming and others at the outskirts of Dodowa and all those places. You close early, you go to your farm, you work till about 6, 7, and you are back home. So you can produce your own food. You can do your own operation, feed yourself.
Yeah.
By us reducing government working hours. And even in the private sector, running 3 shifts, which were mentioned in the 24-hour plan, it means somebody runs 1 shift. After you have run 1 shift, what do? You go and sleep.
Yeah.
Is that what we are saying? No. After running 1 shift, you have to run away and then go and do another job before the day closes. And that is the encouragement that we need to do. If there are any laws that are restricting people from getting 2 jobs to be done, this is the time that we have to do it, so that we can increase production.
And so we can also introduce economic activity.
Exactly, more economic activities.
Yeah.
And then the money will go into our pockets.
Right.
For those 2 jobs. The graduates that are coming out will get more jobs to do. And one particular point that also has come up, which I commend government, is this farmers service centers they want to introduce for this agricultural purposes. It is one thing that must be done, so that now that most of our children are not around to help in farming, and indeed we need to move more into commercial farming so that we can produce in large quantities, then the farmer service centers are necessary so that they can help in the farmers, in cultivating large scale and mechanizing, harvesting, irrigation, and so on and so forth. When you go to Akuse, behind Akuse and this, what is the name? This rice area, Aveimi and those areas, it is something that we need to support. When you go to Daboya and those places, it's something we need to support. And one major aspect that we also need to improve so that we can sustain the economy, improve on our currency, is the energy sector. So far, I have been in the energy sector all this while.
Okay.
And it is one area that has been neglected for some time. Even though we see Bui coming in, we see some solar and others, the rate of population growth is such that our demand for power is very high. Why is our demand for power very high? Because in this country, we have scattered housing. When you are coming from outside or you are in a plane up there, the size of Accra alone is more than New York, because we have spread all the way to Winneba and beyond, spread all the way to Tema and gone beyond, spread all the way towards Dodowa and gone beyond, all scattered settlement. And everybody's house needs to be connected. So if it needs to be connected, then it means you have all the lines, so much cost in electricity. That is why we keep on increasing the light bills. And that is wrong. Until we are able to know how to plan our utilities, we will continue to expend so much, because all these items are imported.
Yeah.
And that is why this PRC have been adjusting every quarter.
Yeah.
We have neglected the power area, and we need to plan it properly. Now government says, look, I want to outsource ECG and so on and so forth. It is a wrong move. In fact, it is a completely wrong move. Let me use this medium to tell government that, look, privatizing ECG is a wrong move. Simply because if you privatize, you will not change the structure that it is operating. You will not change significantly the staffing that is being done. It will go back to the same trial that we did with PDS, which resulted in the complete mess that happened. There should be a proper control and structure of the power sector,
right,
and investment into it. and that will improve on the utility payments and availability for industry to survive. Because right now, the tariffs that are given to industries are so high that when they produce, it also goes to affect the cost push inflation. If it is high, it means when they produce, it's high. And most institutions are trying to leave this country because of high utility payments, high taxes.
Right.
And all these will not help in the productivity that we are looking for.
Right. Very interesting thought there. Let me quickly turn to Mr. Sari. And Mr. Sari, maybe, yes, just coming, almost like coming to the end there. Let me find, you initially had discounted the idea of monetary policies. In your opinion, you think that we need to maintain the dollar situation we have now, we should veer so much into production. But let me find out from you, do you think that the IMF fiscal discipline introduced into our economy is also something we can give some credit to in terms of our cedi appreciation?
As a matter of fact, the IMF comes in because we didn't do something.
Yeah.
So we are not going to rely on them for development. The IMF will not come and develop the economy for you.
Absolutely, but at least they introduced some discipline we needed to have.
Yes, and I admire what Doc is saying. He mentioned the 24-hour economy. If I think that Doc understands the 24-hour economy more than those who brought it. I myself, I don't understand the 24-hour economy as he does. And if we want the people to come along with the 24-hour economy, then the people must actually understand it. As of now, I don't understand fully what the 24-hour economy actually means. The people, apart from those informal sector work, there are so many people there who are not working. Even the work is the result there. How are we going to split it to 24 hours? So we need a better understanding of that topic, 24-hour economy. And I think maybe they will have to consult Doc for more details to put a paper on the 24-hour economy to get something better out of it. As we're saying, the IMF to support the monetary policy and ensure that there is discipline. Because if they leave you alone, you are not going to be disciplined. And so long as they are here and they ensure that you don't spend, then you are not going to have inflation. Because they have said, hey, don't spend, don't go and do this. That thing you are going to do is the actual cure, right? What you are going to do is the actual cure. But because we're indisciplined, IMF will say, don't do that, okay? And it's only a short-term phenomenon. So we need to, I think we need more discipline. The other day when Professor Ayiti was Kwekusi Kiado, and when I threw a question to him, that he should give me in one sentence what our major problem is. He laughed and said, rule of law, absence of rule of law. So Kiado checked on him, I was taking it to inflation. He said, no. You see, absence of rule of law. If you do things haphazardly, nobody cares. They're not going to get anywhere. Yeah. People put in place do things, might do the right things, whether in government or not in government. So long as we allow people consume what they should not consume, corruption goes there and nobody cares, nobody gets punished. You see, these are the basic things that have to propel production and supply. Yeah. And so long as we are able to do that one, you wouldn't need the IMF to be around. You don't need. The IMF is putting the torchlight ahead of you, directing you, because you are blind. We ourselves, the way we choose our leaders, we go digging for gold, we go digging for that, using energy. We don't use the same energy to dig for the right people to manage, who will understand the issues. I would think that economists who understand more and have the passion for development should be able to manage economies more than any other people. But we have the real economists, people who care, and when it comes to pushing those ruling us into line, who does it? Who is going to talk? Doc is able to talk now. Doc is sitting there. The government should stop this and do that. He's a strong man. Maybe you are afraid to talk like that. You see, those days when PAV answer, those big men were there. They will write. If you kill them, they don't care. Do we have that one to push people into action, to put government into line? That these things going on are not good, whether they kill you or not. Nobody wants it. And unless we do the right things, we do the proper production, I think monetary policy should be only a short-term action and not a long-term. I think so. No matter what we think about it.
Right. So Mr. Asari thinks that monetary policy should be just a short-term initiative and should not be a long-term to safeguard or protect our economy.
Yeah, Kwaku, I think he's made a very right point, and that is correct, because initially I made those points that monetary policy, foreign currency management is not done by only one person or one aspect of the economy. And rightly, BOG currently is doing very well to try and, as I said, recover the value of currency. And we should support them with the other aspect, and that is production.
Yeah.
We can't continue to rely on BOG alone. If we rely on them, they will be overstretched, and eventually it will get out of hand. And that is where the sustainability becomes an issue. We shouldn't glorify what is going on now. I think this is the time we rather have to sit down and say that, look, how do we sustain it? How do we help BOG to this extent that we have reached? So all the production capacities that we are trying to put in place, all the plans we are trying to put in place, this agriculture and others, cocoa and others, this is the time we have to push. If you say this is the time for us to do it, I would say indeed, then the sustainability can be done. That is pushing the production aspect, planning more into the production aspect.
Yeah.
If you plan more into that, look, food will be available, non-food will be controlled, more export will be done, and Bank of Ghana will then have some kind of peace of mind and be regulating.
Yeah.
And in that situation, you see the currency will be regulating itself. That is why we are now thinking it is artificial, it is that, speculation is also one major aspect.
Yeah.
When people see that, is it true? Is it working? We are holding on to our dollars because it's falling.
It's going to
we
affect their behavior immediately. Yeah.
Very, very seriously.
Yeah.
But when they see that, look, the other aspect is working, and that is the planned production is working, export and others are working, then they will see that, then when you hold your dollar, it will not work.
Yeah.
And in that case, it will be sustained.
Right. In fact, out of love for us to have had a conversation about the international influence or pressures, because now a lot of people, we are told a lot of people are releasing their dollars because now they think that they should move their attention from America elsewhere. But I'm really racing against time. I may have to speak to my producer for us to do a part 2 of this show next week, so we can be able to look at, and in fact, we will have to look at now, what does it mean to the ordinary Ghanaian? Some people, even though the price are reducing, price of goods haven't gone down.
Yeah.
People still are arguing that their goods are still in the warehouse, they want the old dollar. When should we expect it to reflect in our pocket? We may have to look at that next week, because now we are really far behind time. But I'm very grateful. I'll take your concluding words before we wrap up. But let me just remind our listeners that while we speak about spending money locally, you can also think about Tabi Tours. And Tabi Tours creates the amazing travel experience within the country and also within Africa. Are you thinking of maybe going to Ivory Coast or going to Benin or going to Togo? Tabi Tours will offer you that amazing experience where you can join at a very affordable price, so you don't need to spend in $1, so that you contribute to inflation. But you can spend in the local currency, have a very good travel experience with them. You can read Tabi Tours on 055-668-3490, 055-668-3490, or you can also find them on IG at tabi.tours. Tabi is Tabi, tabi.tours, or at Tabi Tours. If you need any travel experience, you can contact them, and I can assure you that you don't need to spend in dollars. You spend in your local currency. You still help in reducing our inflation, and you still have a very good experience. So I'll just take my final word, starting with Mr. Asare, on the sustainability of the fall in dollar. I'm sure that this week, the coming week, we are going to see further reductions. What are your final words?
Thank you. I think to be able to sustain what is happening means looking at our mission of government and use of people. And mission means, why are we here? Are we here for rate of the dollar to go down, or we are here to see real development? Why do people hold dollar? It is because we are using the money as a store of value. Everybody wants to put their money at a place where the value will remain or grow, but not what to go down. So if your city is falling, nobody will put their money into cities. They go for dollar because they want to store their value, because the function of money is a store of value. Therefore, to push the people out of a dollar is to give them real investment. Real investment in putting your money in production. And all that we do must be towards that. Even if it is taking a bond, right? Getting bonds, which are higher yielding, which will support local production. Do it so that the people will move their money from dollar and place it in domestic currencies or domestic production outlets, so that we support real development instead of going for monetary policy and then wasting our time and waiting for another 4 years to say I conquered inflation. I think just too bad. That's my final remarks.
Right. Thank you very much. I turn to Dr. Obeng.
Yeah, thank you, Kweku. I think we've spoken a lot, and in my view, government must be commended for, bring out this currency appreciation. And I also want to commend the BOG for various strategies that have been put in place in order to reduce this exchange rate issues that are affecting most portions of the economy. Because the last time we were even to a level of controlling even cement price. Yeah. And that was very surprising, because how do you go and control cement price when others cannot be controlled, like iron rods and so on and so forth? So I think what we need to do, as Mr. Asare has also said, is for us not to jubilate over the appreciation of the cedi. We shouldn't jubilate at all. I will advise that this is the time that government should sit down, that look, monetary policy alone cannot sustain the gains that the cedi is making. Like we rightly said, there is that international aspect also. What about if it reverses? Then it means we are going to go back. But now that there are those favorable conditions that are resulting in the appreciation of the cedi, let's sit down and get plans that will work to increase the production aspect of the economy. And that must work. If you're able to improve the production aspect, then that will sustain what BOG is doing, and then we can move forward from there. And in that case, the currency can be sustained.
Thank you very much. Doctor says that government should know that we can't just sustain our the appreciation of the cedi just by monetary policy.
Yes.
We must think of production. And Doctor, I must say that there's a listener called Ketua Biara Nswa who says, hi, congratulate you for a good discussion on the topic.
Yes, that's my engineer friend.
Oh, right. So thank you very much, Doctor, for a very insightful conversation on the performance of the economy. Thank you also, Mr. Asare, for joining us and for your insightful contributions. I've loved the fact that we have been able to identify the very unconventional factors which have been affecting our inflation, which we don't turn our attention to. which we haven't paid keen attention to such factors, which I think that governments and policymakers must take some cue from here and see how best they can be able to manage our economy, so that this free fall is going to become a norm and not just an exception, as though we are just trying to please anybody. Thank you very much to our cherished listeners and viewers for joining us. Thank you for spending your Saturday morning with us. It's always a pleasure to have you here. We've been discussing the performance of the economy and whether it is sustainable. My name is Kweku Atakra Jumo, and I've been your host. We shall come your way again next week morning for us to have a further conversation on this matter. But I'll urge us all to keep the conversation running. You can still contact us on our social media platforms, which is ZFMGH, on YouTube, ZTV, or Z Multimedia. Send in your comments, send in your contributions. Let's see what you think of this phenomenon. And then at the end of the day, it is the country that wins. It's Ghana first. Thank you very much. Have a very good weekend and a very good week. And we shall meet next week, Saturday at 9 a.m. Thank you very much, and God bless us all.